Sometime before he died, Walker Percy sent me a threatening and creepy letter from Covington, Louisiana, which he cautioned me, for reasons that were at the time mysterious to me, bewares the delectations of despair. My mom was an English teacher, so I asked her, Ma, what's delectations mean? She said, I don't think it's a word, but it probably comes from delectable. In other words, people who are licky chops of despair. And Sexton was like that. So conniving with Percy and McCartney was going on. Surely the Reagan Latter-day Saint laughing was a muck. Percy was probably behind the carrot tape implant. Well, I'm quite an important fellow, am I? Turns out my family was complicated enough without all this douchebaggery. It comes out of Pittsburgh hillbillies and that. And the reasoning of the status quo in industrial economics. Weirdos. One of them, Pete Shell, wrote on money every chance you get, and I said, I get this dollar bill they scribbled clues on. Because Carnegie Mellon's taking issue with my talking up. They believe the stakes are high. You drive the stakes in, you bargain over where the stakes is established, line the neighbor. My neighbor gets a gun, then you got to get a gun. And you know the way it goes. My dad had complications to him. And the family was estranged from one another on the halfling stuff. Like the first family, Jane Thompson, probably with her husband, were the ones who hired people to really work me over. That's my guess. Jeffrey probably had ties not only in Japan, but with Yoko Ono and the Beatles. My pop actually saw the Beatles in Underground Club, might have even met with them. I think he might have known what was going on. But the question is Zionism, racism, because the licky chops weirdos full of lies in that haberdashery laughingstock joint they call Congress actually had the audacity to pass a resolution announcing that you hate Jews if you don't love Israel. Ain't that something? You wonder what I've been up against being a victim of horrible torture by the Israeli Holocaust survivor community as a child. Terrible torture. Lifelong excruciating suffering and denigrations you would never believe. I've heard the highest ranking Jewish attorney from the University of Pittsburgh spew bald-faced, slanderous hatred at anything Arab de facto without shame. What's that make him? Sophia. I'll tell you what Zionism is to Judaism. Martha Gellhorn had some problems with people who knew that her support for Israel was insufferable. I do not believe that Martha Gellhorn would subscribe to the evil idiocy that's going on now. She seems to be one of those people who committed suicide as a last-ditch effort to save face for her view that Israel could be trusted. Because she saw the liberation of Dachau. My father lived through World War II. My brother is Jewish. I saw the incredible love that my father had for my brother. And I recognize his radiance and joy as a human being. I'm not going to smother it in the BS of making claims to UW grievance status. I get a 6-point of highness from Sherman Alexie for digging my brother, thinking he's neat. Whoa! Somehow in the hot wire, and they get off this idea that doing to the children of Gaza and the people of Gaza what was done to them by Hitler is morally the opposite of one another, when it's identical and the same. It's like an upside, it's like a funhouse mirror of moral inversion. So if you're anti-Zionist, you also hate Jews, meaning you hate. That's like saying if you're anti-Hitler, you hate Jews. And they don't like to hear that stuff. Now, what went on in the concentration camps, I'm aware that the concentration camps used me for a little experiment. And the Delectations of Despair jazz was a caution against trying to buck the blazing saddle I got strapped to a little too frenetically. Pipe down, queer bait, and live with it was the message. Or you'll get a special cocktail from the peachy keen Zionists who dragged you through glass because you was a whoosh. That was before they invented that word. They called me queer bait. Crew. Stithy. I could recite the horrible things that were done to me by the paycheck of the Breckers and the Wattenmakers, but it's all in other. I forgave them when I thought it was just me because of the historic grievance. It's not nice to ask a little boy to forgive being deafened and tortured and sexually violated because of historic grievance. Is that nice? Well, I didn't want to be anti-Semitic. And these Zionists, what they were doing is what Zionists do. You're saying that's what Jews do. That's just what Jews do. Jews just take off after honors program children who are 11 years old because they have blonde hair. A nice blonde boy, Kirshner used to call me with scorn and hatred in his voice while pretending to be my friend. Shulman, I reject your claims with a laugh, he said while stealing from the museums, robbing books. And Abdul the terrorist on KDKA radio. I'm anti-Semite because I revealed that Abdul the terrorist on KDKA radio was none other than Adam Eisenstadt, the Squirrel Hill Berserk Jew. Berserk. Working for Donald Toon. Now, there were a number of important influences over my understanding of what I went through, which I didn't realize was affecting anybody else. I got mad when I found out somebody else was affected. I just took it in stride when it was just me. It's like people say, oh, I wish I could be tortured by Penis Gabriel. You do have to understand that being put through a simulator of Holocaust horrors, they're inventing the idea of a sage. Sickos at Pitt. It wasn't just the Jews there, but it was the Jews. I'm supposed to not be anti that because it was just me. D. Eli Wiesel wrote Night, which I read, of course, cover to cover. Kurt Vonnegut wrote Mother Night, which I also read. Bruno Bettelheim wrote Effect on Individuals in Extreme Situations, something about fairy tales. I read some of his concentration camp digest. I saw both parts of Claude Lanzmann's film Shoah. I listened to the stories and saw the tattoos around my neighborhood. And they pulled pranks on me to make sure they hated me and stuff. I grew up with them. None of the motherfuckers who passed that resolution dare to admit they saw me cry. In pity, fear, frustration, denial of my own. But most of all, remorse for Gaza. How can you do this? How can you spew such rotten lies with a straight face and collect under the table for no reason at all but to do harm in the name of Attila the Hun?